What's going on, folks? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review Justin Bieber's debut album, My World 2.0. Now, this basically came out in early 2010, but Justin Bieber was actually discovered by Usher and I think Tricky Stewart throughout like early 2009 or late 2008. And Justin Bieber, if you don't know his story, basically did some cover songs to Usher and stuff like that, got signed to Usher's label, and was one of the hugest pop sensations, especially teenage pop sensations of the early 2010s. He was from YouTube, blew up all over YouTube, showed up, and is now a fixture in like R&B. I mean, he's one of the figurative R&B figures nowadays. And, he's at a point where Trey Songz was back in those days, and T-Pain, and even Usher. He's kind of reached that point in later years. He hits number one regularly with songs like Peaches and those type moments. And he almost hit number one with Yummy, which he released from the album before that. But I wanted to cover Justin Bieber just because I do appreciate his R&B. I mean, some folks may think that he's pop, but I just can tell by the tinge stuff. Like Lizzo brought up a decent point when she said that she doesn't like how black artists are called R&B when they do pop. And like I've heard SZA talk about that too, but then you look after it, and white artists cannot be R&B, which I look after it. I consider Mariah Carey R&B, and I consider Justin Bieber R&B too. This is very much an R&B flavored album. I mean, it can be pop, but I think definitely that there is moments of R&B on this record. And I think, black artists can be pop and white artists can be R&B, and these are just certain ones. Like Lizzo kind of blends the area between R&B and pop, where I think Lizzo is a pop artist and I think Justin Bieber is an R&B artist, and it's kind of something to be seen. But he was doing this even when he was like 15, 16 years of age. When he wasn't even able to drive, he was able to do some of this R&B type stuff and kind of have those sorts of moments. So I look after it, and there are some pretty stellar moments on here. I mean, it's quite like it's really kind of cheery, almost bubblegum R&B. But the way I look after it is I liked what Justin Bieber was kind of kicking off with, just because, I mean, for the most part, it seemed like he was almost like a pleb just a year before, where he was just, uploading like cover songs and just admiring Usher and that type stuff. But I mean, the guy can sing. I mean, that's definitely the thing about it. He had a great vocal range, and he took to album making and being a musician quite quickly. So there was something to where I think the talents that he wound up having later on as time developed is pretty instantaneous, as of him being only 15, 16 years of age. That's definitely something to be said. He fashioned into the role, and he manifested further, where there were even club records on this project, despite the fact that most 15-year-olds are not going to the club. But there are some dance club and club type moments, just to kind of be able to say that Justin Bieber was doing this when he was just a freshman or so in high school. And that's pretty interesting concept to be able to get that. And I did appreciate this record. I mean, it's definitely has some solitary R&B on here, and it's got some good moments and right singles, right promotion, right good stuff about it. It's just an extra kind of turn. And for another thing, this is kind of something that I think is kind of popular with like the TikTok generation. If you know younger women, something like that, and we're talking younger within like, if you're 30 and she's like 23, 24 or something, I think that's kind of the context about being able to pay attention, that this connects with, I think, the TikTok generation, which I've noticed. Like, I think Chris Brown does also, but in terms of like something that's really kind of not quite over the hill, and like Jay-Z, and when folks say that Jay-Z and Nas are irrelevant and that type of stuff, I feel like Biebs is still right in the avenue of being in his prime. And I mean, he's getting older than some of the youngest of these TikTok stars, but I do think, these are people that like Addison Rae from TikTok and those type people could actually kind of connect with and such. But so so there were four singles off this project. The first single was Baby. I actually knew of this song. I mean, I somewhat knew of Justin Bieber back when he first came out, but I do at least remember this song. Ludacris helps supply an extra verse on here. And it's kind of interesting because it's a pretty romantic song. Justin Bieber pouring his heart out when he's just 15, the way he weaves through these verses and stuff. I think a lot of people were thinking that it was just puppy love and that type of stuff, but it's actually a pretty effectual R&B song. I definitely feel like the the way he serenades on the song is pretty well introduced. And I think that's a good concept. And Ludacris drops a good verse, despite the fact that he kind of it's not it kind of almost, I don't want to say condescending, but just kind of is not quite as fiery a Ludacris verse as it would typically be. I think he realized that this is probably more for like the teenage and younger setting, but Ludacris still did a good job on there. He did have like a nice Starbucks line on there and that type of stuff. So I like that song. It's pretty, like it's like cheery. Like I just feel like the exuberance of like how cheery it is. It's like a 6 year old kid jacked up on like like six like 8 cartons of chocolate milk or something, just completely on like a caffeine rush is what it just feels like, a kid on a caffeine rush. The Baby song by Justin Bieber, but it is pretty good. I do think it's pretty solitary as far as that actually kind of goes. But the second single is Eeny Meeny, and this has Sean Kingston in the feature. And I would have to say, like, Eeny Meeny, the thing about it is thing about Eeny Meeny is like Justin Bieber mimics and emulates Sean Kingston so well in the song. I really felt like they just forgot to put Justin Bieber on here. It just feels like both verses plus the third verse and the extra stuff at the end was all Sean Kingston. So the pre-chorus, the two verses, and the rest of the song really felt like the whole way through. I mean, Justin Bieber sounds identical to Sean Kingston on here, and it's interesting is because you basically get another taste of Sean Kingston from his 2007 album with Beautiful Girls on there and Me Love and that type stuff. So it's interesting kind of get that. I do kind of feel like it's a nice extra taste of Sean Kingston, see when he was up to a couple years later, and it works. I mean, to me, this is a song that you would hear at like a shopping mall. You know, this is a record that you would hear at a shopping mall in places where you're gonna be kind of hopping and bopping, like being a mall rat and that type stuff. Just kind of hopping bopping with younger settings, like teenagers, that type stuff, early 20s. I mean, it's interesting to kind of get some mall songs because it's kind of an avenue that's kind of forgotten about. I do feel like this is a record that you could probably hear at like a local shopping mall, especially 10, 12 years ago. It would have been an interesting record to have heard there. But I do kind of, it's something to be forgotten about because, I mean, you got to buy clothes. You got to get some new clothes, some new kicks, that type of stuff, new hats, those sorts of things. So it's important to kind of go to the mall, but just to kind of say that not every single musician makes music for a shopping mall and that type of stuff. But it just felt like I definitely can see like more than 3 records off of My World 2.0 being a mall song, and Eeny Meeny is one of those. And another mall song that's kind of another single that's kind of a mall song is the third single, Somebody to Love. Now really I felt like this could have been a club song. I mean, it just feels like light EDM R&B type stuff, and it reminded me of something that David Guetta would do or Pitbull would do, just the fact that Justin Bieber is a teenager and stuff. So I definitely appreciated that one. This is pretty much like the only real club song. There's like maybe one other club song on here, but I definitely like the approach that Justin Bieber was at least aiming to eventually do records for stepping out and that type stuff, that was not just intended for people who had a curfew or something like that. But I do like the chorus, pretty natural chorus on there, and just an easy kind of romantic and kind of this easygoing kind of R&B type song or club type song. It just works pretty damn well. And I mean, to me, this song is probably, I like this song better than I like Baby, despite the fact that Baby had a more instant kind of appeal towards it and just kind of felt like a puppy love kind of song. But Eeny Meeny was kind of like a mall song that's just kind of more like kind of mildly flirtatious, but Somebody to Love really felt like the ones that Justin Bieber was eventually going to get into, and it works. So it's just, once again, he's a teenager doing it. And fourth single was You Smile. Fourth single was You Smile, and this is, I didn't really prefer this single, but it's kind of an overbearing one. Like there's like 3 or 4 songs on here that kind of have like this emphasis of like kind of have this emphasis of like more makeshift and kind of just getting through the day, kind of more like for people Justin Bieber's age, the concept of going to school, going to work, just a routine kind of in and out kind of day, just regular schematics, that type stuff. You know, you go to work, you get home, blah blah blah. Just another in and out kind of day to day type song. It's not even like I have a problem with that concept of in and out day to day type thing, but I just feel like a lot of these were just pretty makeshift and they lacked the flavor of the first three singles. Just felt kind of more like, at least in the production, it felt more kind of just manufactured. And I mean, I know just based upon this, the topic of the song, "You Smile," which is just kind of being more earnest and little bit more romantic. It's probably the most romantic out of all these songs, minus "Baby," but this one's a little bit more long term and kind of more intended. But I think it had the less kind of energy and kind of electricity towards it. So it's just kind of, I mean, in terms of the singles, I feel like probably in terms of like the romanticism for it, it'd be "You Smile" at the top, then "Baby," then "Somebody to Love," then "Eeny Meeny." But in terms of the effectiveness, it's probably "Somebody to Love," then "Baby," then "Eeny Meeny," then "You Smile." But it's not to say that "Eeny Meeny" is bad, it's because I picked it third. That's just kind of the concept, something to pay attention to. But all the singles are pretty, or most of the singles are pretty good, 3 out of 4. And there's also like a digital only single, but it's called "Never Let You Go." But that's another one that's kind of in that angle as far as like, it's another one that's kind of in that angle as far as like the more kind of makeshift kind of day to day kind of vibe towards it, just in that sort of concept. I mean, so we'll go ahead and talk about these. The 6 songs I recommend to you would be "Baby," "Somebody to Love," "Runaway Love," "Up," "Eeny Meeny," and "Stuck in the Moment." So I've talked about the singles, but the 3 other songs that I recommend would be "Runaway Love," "Up," and "Stuck in the Moment." And really, "Runaway Love" is basically like the secondary club song. This is not quite as energetic and quite as dance ready as "Somebody to Love," but it's pretty close. I mean, it's just a nice kind of suave, especially for the teeny bop setting, kind of rhythmic kind of song towards it that I enjoyed. And then "Stuck in the Moment" was another mall song like "Eeny Meeny" that works pretty well for that. Just kind of traversing through a shopping mall, just kind of going about your day with friends and that type of stuff, or interest, that sort of thing. It just has a nice bop to it. And then "Up" was kind of an R&B flavor. This is like the stuff that Trey Songz and Usher would be doing. It's not quite as sexualized, but it does have the concept of like the flirtiness kind of in there. And I do like the concept of just getting some R&B type cuts from Justin Bieber, just to kind of say that he can do R&B and is pretty good at that. So this is why I say between "Somebody to Love," "Up," and kind of "Stuck in the Moment," I feel like some of these, and even "Baby," kind of qualifies as R&B in like a light sense. I mean, some of these, just the romanticism behind them, like pop is not always quite as romantic as that sort of stuff is. I mean, it's just kind of more, there's not many songs on here that are not intended for like flirtatiousness. And I think, I mean, pop is not quite as distinguished in that, in terms of like the full blown every song is going to be for a romantic interest, but this kind of has more qualities to where I think it has a light tinge of R&B on there. But I do appreciate it. It's pretty good. Justin Bieber did nice work on that. So it's just kind of underneath that impression. So me liking 6 out of 10 songs, this brief album, but it's also because he dropped "My World Part 1," which was an EP. So I would have to say 6 out of 10 in terms of how many songs I like. I'm going to give this record a 6.5 out of 10. I think that's, it's pretty good. Over half the project really kicks ass. Over half the project kicks ass, and I would have to say that, I mean, the 4 songs I didn't enjoy, which was "Overboard," "You Smile," "That Should Be Me," and "Never Let You Go." I mean, all of those songs just were virtually just more kind of makeshift and kind of more straightforward and kind of more just not, I don't want to say long term, like that's a bad thing, but they just had more kind of goals attached to them and that type of stuff, and just kind of a lot more kind of pronounced with it and that sort of thing. But I like the Justin Bieber that was kind of more stepping out and kind of a little bit more social, that kind of stuff, not so much tunnel vision type stuff on there. And that's kind of, some of these songs kind of get tunnel vision somewhat. But um I did like So yeah, there's lots to like on here. The social score, I'm gonna go ahead and give that like a 6.5. Also, I feel like the social score in terms of how well this plays around your friends and folks that you're hanging out with and that type of stuff. I definitely feel like songs like "Stuck in the Moment," "Somebody to Love," "Eeny Meeny," "Up," and "Runaway Love," which is about half the project, all have some real nice moments. I mean, even when Justin Bieber's romantic, it's not in a sense that it really just is him and the girl he's talking to. I do feel like some of this is kind of socialized to the point where you can listen to some of these songs even though they're romanticized with your friends, and some of those type moments it's just kind of in a flirty sense. So it's not quite as insular as just like, hey, I'm talking strictly to my girl, and that's kind of like the whole thing. There are some songs like that. Like I feel like Baby is like that, and like Never Let You Go is like that, and songs like that. But I just would have to say it's at least in a social setting to the point where it's not insular R&B. So that's pretty good. And yeah, this is an overall enjoyable project. I just feel like even if it's 5 years younger than my setting, I still feel like it's good enough to kind of have those moments just to kind of say for the younger setting, just to kind of say, it's not, you don't always have to have moments for like your specific age. If someone's younger than you, it's just good to kind of have that in the mix. So I look after that. I mess with Justin Bieber. I try to mess with like folks younger than the Biebs, that sort of stuff. I would have to say like Tinashe is 4 years younger than me, and just folks like that. I mean, you just would have to look after. I'm not one to say, I'm not one to say I don't mess with music younger than me. I mean, when it starts reaching a point where people who are 18 when I'm like 40 and that type of stuff, I don't know the degree, but I just like, I'm going to start reviewing some of these moments too. So it's not just for folks that are like 35 and 37 and 40 and that type of stuff, where I'm going to get some of these more youthful moments in here. So it's good to do. So this is kind of the concept. So 6.5 out of 10 social. And can this record be topped? I mean, it's pretty impactful. I do feel like the power behind this project is pretty good. Great debut. Definitely have to say this is a great debut and stuff. So I appreciate the emphasis. Nice kind of mall ready, shopping mall ready, flirty kind of R&B type stuff. So I appreciate that sort of angle. And in terms of the future, like Justin Bieber dropped an album in 2021. I get the feeling he'll be back soon enough, but he dropped two albums, one in 2020, one in 2021. So we'll probably get another one soon. Hopefully we do, because I've bought a few of these and there is some good R&B. I eventually want to review Purpose, because that's a pretty damn good R&B album.